Trading Places is a 1983 released comedy directed by John Landis.
Yes, it's what is it about? It's about a rich investor played by Dan Aykroyd who works for these two guys, the Duke brothers, who they're basically absolutely loaded, live in a massive country pile, and just basically make money off investments and nice way to make a living. And they just spend their days in the country club while he makes their money for them. Because they're horrible people, they decide to have a little experiment. Basically, Eddie Murphy shows up as a homeless guy. He's a bit of a con artist, trying to get money out of people, claiming that he's a war vet and he's got no legs and he can't see and things like that when he's actually fine. But he gets into the country club. There's a scene that takes place, and he gets arrested, etc., etc. And then they come up with this plan to basically swap them. Hence the title, Trading Places. They put him in charge of the company and put Dan Aykroyd on the streets, just for fun, to see what would happen.
To see what
as
would
a social
happen.
experiment, basically.
Exactly.
And and these two guys obviously are unaware that that's how it's happened. And then we're joined by Jamie Lee Curtis, who helps Dan Aykroyd out as a hooker with a heart of gold.
Yeah.
and there's, who else we got in there? Denholm Elliott as the butler originally, obviously for Winthorpe, Dan Aykroyd's character, and then for Eddie Murphy, what's his name?
Valentine.
Billy Ray
Valentine.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not a particularly unknown film, but it is Christmassy and also
It is.
New Year-y as well.
Yeah, so we kind of come in at the end of Christmas, but then it's got New Year, and the film ends with the New Year in there as well. So another similar to last week we did Scrooge. This is it's a staple. A lot of people will know this film. It's not that obscure at all, actually. I think it's probably maybe lesser known now than Scrooged. We were saying before. I mean, I watched this a lot. It was one of my mum's favourite movies when I was a child, so I watched it quite a lot back in those days. I think it was on TV, so it was heavily cut. Because there's actually quite a lot of swearing in here that I remember, I think I saw it on video or something. I was like, wow, that was never in the film. What's all this going on? But I think also it's maybe fallen out of the consciousness slightly because it's quite stereotypical, this one.
Yeah.
I mean, we are right back in the beginning of the year, so 1983. And there's a few things in there that you kind of go...
Yeah,
couldn't get away with that anymore.
You kind of have to view it through an 80s lens and not through today's.
Very much so. So there is some kind of, I suppose, underlying racism. There's a few, kind of racist jokes and
homophobic jokes.
A few homophobic jokes in there. It's a bit sexist. all that stuff.
All the classic 80s.
Classic 80s. Yeah. I mean, like you said, Jamie Lee Curtis. And really well, she's great in it, but she plays the, why is she a prostitute? It doesn't really explain, but yeah, she's got the heart of gold, and she obviously she's using Dan Aykroyd to basically go to loads of money out of him.
Well, yeah,
they're all not really quite nice people, any of them really. But it's got some funny stuff in there. I've read some reviews recently that suggest a lot of people nowadays don't find it that funny. I mean, I don't think it's as funny as Scrooged. But it's got some great stuff in there, and it's Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy. I mean, this was Eddie Murphy at the top. Well, it's kind of a beginning of the top of his game.
It was before...
Because he came out and... he did, is it Raw? Was it Stand Up Raw? And there was another one.
I forget what it was
I can't remember, but he kind of came out of, I suppose it would be late 70s, early 80s, maybe just early 80s.
This is before Beverly Hills Cop.
Before that, he did 48
hours.
No, he did 48 hours.
Was he?
That was before it.
Oh, yeah.
And John Landis was told, you should use Eddie Murphy. And at that point, he didn't actually know who he was because 48 hours I don't think had come out yet.
Right.
And then that came out, and of course, it exploded. Rightly so, because Eddie Murphy was hilarious.
I mean, I think 48 Hours, again, watching it now, I mean, there's quite a lot of racism in it.
Yeah,
and it's,
sure.
I mean, Nick Nolte's character is just awful. He's a horrible, horrible person who treats everyone like crap.
I've seen it, not for a long time.
Last time I watched it, I was like, what? How? You just wouldn't get a film now where that's your hero, because he's just not heroic in any way, really. He's just horrible. He treats everyone like dirt, especially Eddie Murphy.
No, I think for Eddie Murphy, Beverly Hills Cop was his it's his kind of standing achievement. It's a great film. I haven't seen that for a while either, but that is a great film. It wasn't John Landis who made that, was it? He did the third. Did he do the third one? He did the
third one. Yeah, I can't remember. Tony Scott did the second one.
That's right.
Martin Brest did the first one.
That's right.
Yeah, can't believe I remember that.
Good stuff. Good knowledge there. That's good. Yeah. So Beverly Hills Cop is kind of his. That's the one people know him from.
Yeah.
In the 80s, anyway. So this one is kind of the beginning of his film career, anyway. But he's very funny in it. I think he's one of the funnier ones. But then Dan Aykroyd is great as well.
Yeah.
You know, big fans of Dan Aykroyd. We love. Well, you don't like the Blues Brothers, do you?
I'm not a massive fan of it. No.
Okay, because I do like a big fan of the Blues Brothers. Obviously, John Landis again, and obviously Ghostbusters and other ones.
Grosse Point Blank, which we did a video
Grosse
on.
Point Blank, which we spoke about recently. Yeah, he's great in that. Oh, Dan Aykroyd's legendary. He's so good, and he's really great in this. And there's some wonderful moments. There's the great moment where he plays like the drunk Santa, which is just a classic sequence. He does that really well. I think there's a bit of a nod there to It's a Wonderful Life. I think I was reading, but I can't really remember It's a Wonderful Life to pinpoint that thing. But it's some great. There is some great stuff in here if you just look past the not so great stuff. There's a bit of nudity in there. Like I said, it is the 80s, isn't it? After all, but then
the only 80s thing they don't do is go to a strip club.
No, they don't.
They have
bring
a party
it to the
where,
party.
yeah, basically it's in his house.
To his house.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a very funny joke in the jacuzzi. I love that when he's what's his name?
Denholm Elliott.
Denholm Elliott switches on. I think he gives him a bath because he comes in and he's been a bit dirty, and he says, "Would you like a jacuzzi?" And he says, "What's that?" or something. And he switches on the bubbles. And then he makes the joke about, when we were younger, if we wanted a jacuzzi, we'd have to fart in the bath, which is hysterical. Obviously, he does it much better than I do it. It's got some great jokes in there. And of course, you got the Duke brothers. Of course, I mean they're very well known themselves. Although I didn't. There's Ralph Bellamy, is one of them, and Donna Mesh. You'd recognise Donna Meshi or Donna Mesh. He turned up in Cocoon a few years after this. I think he'd had quite a break for like 15 years or so from cinema, and then this kind of brought him back on the scene again. I imagine those two have probably been dead for quite a while now. They were quite old. Donna Mesh had a huge career back in the 40s and 50s. So yes, these are people who have probably passed away since then. And there's a few other faces in there. James Belushi, John Belushi's brother.
Yep.
Crops up in an interesting scene.
Yeah. It's only a small role, but
pivotal
in a weird way.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. I think that towards the end, well, I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it, but yeah, it's a bit contrived. I think at the end with the gorilla, shall we say? it's all
that's all we need to say.
Kind of falls apart a bit.
I'll stick a clip over, but that's all we need to say. It's an interesting sequence. That
Paul Gleason.
Yeah, The Breakfast Club and Die Hard, kind of playing a similar role to both of those films.
Kind of.
Well, he's usually that kind of, not really Breakfast Club as a teacher in Breakfast Club, but that kind of, he's a bit of a creep.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And Giancarlo Esposito.
Oh, right.
Who is, he's only in it very briefly, but I recognise him straight away, and he was Gus in Breaking Bad, if you've watched that. He's also in Usual Suspects, so, obviously a very early role for him. There's lots of other people in it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and also because it's John Landis, Frank Oz turns up in it. He plays a police sergeant at the beginning when Dan Aykroyd is brought in on dubious charges. And but I think Frank Oz, he was in Blues Brothers as well, and he turns up a lot with John Landis.
Yeah, and obviously the voice of Yoda.
And Miss Piggy.
Yeah, yes.
Fozzie and others like it. Yeah, so I mean, we are in John Landis territory, and I'm a big fan of John Landis. There's a few nods in there to John Landis himself. The most famous one being, which you didn't even know what I was talking about.
Sorry.
See You Next Wednesday, which is the classic not existing film that he always puts into his movie. So American Werewolf, you will remember, it's the actual. I mean, there is a film in there called See You Next Wednesday, and it's the one in the Porn Cinema in Piccadilly Circus. Great scene. I love that film. I love American Werewolf. It's a great film.
It is.
So yeah, I mean, so John Landis films will know exactly what that is. That always crops up in his films.
Is there a reference to that in the Thriller video?
There is.
Is there?
Yeah, I think it's on. I think there's a screen. I think there's a poster when he comes out of the cinema. At the
There you
beginning
go.
of the film.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, exactly. So Trading Places is a great film. You probably either love it or you hate it. Maybe if you're a millennial, you might hate it because it's a bit un-PC around the edges. But it's, for guys of our generation, it's
of its
fun.
time.
It's very
and,
of its time.
Like I said, you can't really judge it by today's standards.
No, I mean
it wouldn't get made in the same way now.
No, not at all. I mean, it's also similar again to Scrooge last week. We were talking about you were in the 80s and we're in that kind of corporate, that money world.
Yeah,
it's very about money and wealth. Obviously everyone wanted to get rich quickly in the 80s, and there was a lot of money going around. And I think there is an interesting message in here, but especially at the beginning of the film, when the film first starts up, there were kind of scenes between, so you see all the wealth of Dan Aykroyd's world, but then you see pictures of people homeless around the streets of Philadelphia. Is actually filmed in this, not New York. Strangely, you'd expect something like this to be made in New York. So yeah, and you just kind of juxtapose with scenes of homeless people, and of course that's when you bring Eddie Murphy's character in. So it's kind of a strange film. There's kind of the two old men in there are racist. They are bigots. They are old school, and they've got all this money. But then there's like weird scenes where the film itself is kind of underscores racism. It's quite a strange mix, but I think it's an odd one.
I mean, I think to me it almost felt a bit like the times we're living in now, to be honest, with these these billionaires basically controlling people's lives, for the hell of it. So
this is very true. Yeah, exactly.
It's not all that it's still slightly relevant today, I would
possibly
say.
more so now. It's coming back in that way a little bit.
And if you understand trading and stocks and shares and things like that, it definitely helps, because at the end...
It does. The end sequence is... Yeah, I've seen this film quite a few times and still don't understand how they do what they do or get away with what they get away with or whatever. So if there's any stock traders out there, don't bother explaining. I still won't understand it. He tried explaining. I still don't get it. So, it's very kind of heavy on the whole stock markets. But the end sequence is actually great with all of them kind of... you get those famous scenes that they always see of all the traders on the floor and screaming and
waving
shouting.
Bits of, I don't know how anyone can hear what anyone else is saying.
I guess it's all done on phones now.
It's
probably very quiet. I don't know. But I don't.
Who knows?
It comes up
that's why we're not billionaires, isn't it?
They do in Ferris Bueller, don't they? They stand and watch the stock exchange as well, which is hilarious. So yes, it is an old film, and it's a classic in some people's eyes. Not so much in other people's eyes, but can you still see it? I reckon.
Yes.
So.
I mean, it's something that, I don't know, I haven't seen it on TV in a while, but I'm sure it's available. It's probably streaming somewhere. I haven't checked. But I've got it on DVD, easily available. There is, I don't think there's a Blu-ray in the UK. I think there is in the States. I mean, this one I've got doesn't have any extras on it. But there is a version that does have, I think it's got a few short featurettes, and it's got a deleted scene and things like that. So, if you're looking to pick it up, go for the one that's got extras on it for a little bit of behind the scenes info. But yeah, not hard to track down if you really want to watch it.
So that was Trading Places, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments below.
Yep, hit the subscribe button up there if you've enjoyed what you've watched. There's some other videos to check out over there. Come and join us on Twitter and Facebook, and come back next week for another one.
And Happy New Year.
Absolutely.